Denial. It plays a really big role in our recovery and our children's recovery from this situation. We have to remember how we interacted and dealt with the situation earlier on, before we knew, before the cloud started to lift and the fog started to dissipate, and we started to get an understanding of what's going on. And that understanding happened, in a multitude of ways. It was either we finally were fed up or we were discarded. But that acceptance of reality didn't happen overnight, and it didn't happen in the beginning. The problem is as we progress on and we start to recover from this, and our denial starts to go away, and we start accepting and believing what our reality is, and we get to the point where we're not questioning what how bad it is or how bad it was. We just accept it. We realize that it was bad, right? The issue for us who have kids is they have to go through the same process. I've seen this a lot with comments that have been coming up lately, and I've been dealing with this myself. As a fundamental truth that our children really want to have a positive relationship with the other parent, just as when we really wanted to have a positive relationship with our spouse or our significant other. You can't expect your kids to just grasp this immediately and just give into it. They don't want to do it. They don't want to believe it. They want to think that it's exaggerated. They want to think that they're blowing it out of proportion, that it's not as bad as it is. And I can't knock anybody for having that view. I can't knock my son, we'll talk about him in a minute, for having that view, because I went through the same thing. If I roll the clock back to when I was 18 or 16 and that time frame, I didn't want to believe the reality I was growing up in. It's hard to accept. Now, I mentioned before that I didn't really have a close relationship or much of a relationship with my dad, but I was so defensive on my mom that even when he tried to talk to me about it, I couldn't hear it. Now, in a lot of ways, I used to think that, maybe it was just his approach and his technique, but lately in my own conversations with my son, what I'm beginning to realize is that it's just, you're fundamentally trying to not attack somebody at their core, but you're trying to get to the core, right? And it's just one of those things that they protect it so tight. They don't want to believe, just like I didn't want to believe what I now know is true about my ex and about my own mom. So it's tough though, because when you see somebody going through that and you see somebody actively destroying everything around them, destroying your life, destroying your kids' lives, and destroying sometimes it's appropriate and to use that word. Other times it could be exaggerated. But fundamentally there's a profound effect about what is going on in this situation. So my oldest, who's 18, is really having a hard time with this. He's being directly attacked or undermined, or however you want to say it, by his mom and by his sisters. He is worried about his youngest, which I've talked a little bit about what's going on with her. So, and at the same time, he doesn't really want to believe everything that's going on. I had a conversation with him this morning. Yesterday was a complicated day. Wednesdays are transition days. Kids also had therapy appointments, which were a little more complicated because I got pulled in with my son because he wanted to talk about concerns with my daughter, and it's frustrating, right? I mean, the therapist is like, "Well, were you aware of this?" And I'm like, "I haven't seen him for 5 days. I have no idea what's been going on for the last 5 days, so I don't know. I don't know what's happened. I don't know what's been said. I don't know what the dynamic has been." And started going through some of the issues, and it's not good. right? And it's like, I mean, I got kind of frustrated because I'm like, there's nothing I can do about that environment. You know, it's a Groundhog Day. Every Wednesday is a Groundhog Day. And on the weeks that it's 5 days, it's a little bit better because I know I have more time. And I told the therapist yesterday, I'm like, look, on the day it's 2 days, it's just trying to get through with a minimal amount of damage between those 2 days to start over. You know, it's slow progress. But, and so there were some open and frank discussions there. And I had mentioned in it, I said, look, I understand what he's going through. You know, it's frustrating to watch, but I get it, right? And then later in the day, I'm trying to figure out some stuff with school and getting him, you know, trying to get the school messed up and didn't have him do this. The high school he's in didn't call him in to do the placement testing for the college he's going to try to go to, a community college. And, you know, so he's upset about that. He's upset about what's going on with his sister. He's upset about the finance. He's upset about his mom. He's upset with me. He's upset with everything. And, you know, so last night we were talking about some of the situations and trying to figure out, okay, it's like, well, you know, what is your mom doing? So he said, you know, his mom will only do anything if he pushes it. If he pushes her on it, he'll do it. So I'm like, okay, well, you know, is she doing anything with you? I mean, are we crossing? I mean, are we double, you know, are multiple people working on the same issue? And he's like, well, no, right? So anyways, this morning, talking to him, he's so frustrated about the night before. And he's like, well, you know, I'm really frustrated about the conversation, you know, that we had yesterday. And I'm like, okay. I said, well, what part? And he said, well, it's part about my mom. And I'm like, okay. I said, so what is it? I said, is it because you believe it or you don't believe it or what, you know, I mean, what is it? I mean, are you frustrated because of the situation you're in? Are you frustrated because you don't believe what's going on? And that's kind of what he said. He says, well, I don't think it's as bad as you say it is, right? You know, and as he's saying this, I'm looking at it going, oh my God, you know, here we are talking about the problems with his siblings, his concern for his youngest sister. I mean, just there's all kinds of example over example of how screwed up what the source of this is and the impact of it. But again, it goes back to what the beginning topic I was talking about. It's that denial. You don't want to believe it. You don't want it shoved in your face. Now, I'm not necessarily shoving it in his face. It's happening because of his age, because of things that are going on, and it's more visible. But it doesn't mean he still wants to see it, right? Again, it goes back to what I was talking about before when we were involved in these situations. You know, guys, I know for me, I went through the same thing that my son is going through. I would have these moments of clarity where I would understand what was going on, that I realized that I need to escape. And as soon as I could get through, as soon as I could get my brain would kick back in, as soon as I got some rest or whatever, it would, instead of thinking clearly, I thought I was thinking clearly, but what it was is I was able to recondition myself to believe the narrative, to believe the false narrative, to believe the illusion that I wanted so much to believe. There was another person, I won't use names, but there was another person the other day, I think, talking maybe on the live stream about some issues going on with her kids, her older kids, and her ex, and how, you know, dad is now trying to be, you know, dad of the year. And the kids are so starved. Our kids are so starved from attention from the other parent that they can be being emotionally abused to their face. But if there's just a little tiny bit of, you know, validation in their mind that that other parent, their mom or their dad, cares about them, they are going to grab onto that like a life preserver. And we have to understand that, you know, and guys, it sucks and it hurts because you want them to open their eyes, be able to see what's going on and realize it, and then start taking steps to protect themselves. The same way we had to. But see, here's the thing, guys. You know, depending on where you are at this phase, if you're at the beginning stages of it and you're still having a lot of, PTSD and emotional impacts, you're still in the beginning stages of it and you're having a hard time with it. And you're being overtly attacked and abused by this person and you're still having a hard time with it. You know, you roll the clock back before this happened and when you were living in it, and maybe it might have been overt, but it wasn't, there was still the illusion of a family, and more than likely it was probably more covert, or something would happen and then they would apologize or they would make excuses or they would do something, maybe they'd just be a complete, jerk, and then later never acknowledge what they did, but then act nice and do something that, they know you like, right? So they're screwing with your head. The problem is once we're gone, there's no incentive for them to really be nice. They don't have to, right? They only have to do that whenever they're trying to suck you back in, or they, they're winning and they're just trying to rub it in. So, so our kids are going through that same thing, and we have to understand that. We have to frame it to where we can see what's going on and give them some credit that of their experience, of how they have to go through it. That's why it's really dangerous for us to get into conversations about what's going on with the other parent. It gets harder when they get older because it's more in your face, more real life scenarios, more real life issues. But still, it's one of those topics it's a dangerous topic. It's, you don't want to be the messenger, right? Shoot the messenger, so to speak. I mean, you just need to try to continue to create that environment, that safe environment for our kids, for your kids. One of the issues that I didn't necessarily talk about yesterday in the session, but I don't know if I mentioned it to you, is I can't really figure out where he's going or what he wants to do, right? So, and some of these comments, these pushbacks that I'm getting from him, that I'm still trying to figure out where they're coming from, so I don't know. I mean, this could potentially turn around and he could, decide that, I'm full of BS and he wants to stay with his mom. I don't know. I don't think that's going to happen, but I don't know. The problem is that, I'm going through this roller coaster torture trying to figure out how to catch somebody who's going to jump out of a building, a burning building, and they keep running around different windows, and it's like, well, where do you go? You try to set up, and then you're like, okay, well, they're going to land here, so you set up here. Well, they're going to land over here, so you set up over here. Then they're over here. I mean, and it's incredibly stressful, and it's incredibly tiring, So just want to talk a little bit about that today, and I wanted you just to think about it. So if you're having a situation with your kids where it's really hurting you, that it almost feels like the other parent is just punching them, and you're watching it and they're seeing it, and you're like, dude, your mom's punching you. No, she's not. She's giving me a hug. And it's like, it's like, no. And that's the problem, right? It's like, so again, it gets to the point where you really just have to focus on your own environment and try to put that other crap out of your head, because it will drive you crazy. It will drive you insane. All right. So if you have some stuff you want to add to the discussion on this, on how you're dealing with this, because I know this is a really tough one. I've been dealing with it for 6 years, and it's just like, it's amazing how it keeps morphing. Add that into the comments below. If you appreciate this video, please give it a thumbs up. Those thumbs ups do help. If you like the channel, please subscribe, and I will chat with you guys on the next video. Take care.